Okay, it's 14:03 at Go to 10 in Stockholm, and it's time to start its workshop. Nice to see so many people in here, and very excited to be co-hosting this together with Internetstiftelsen. My name is Per Lagerström. I work for the think tank Futurion, pretty new think tank set up by TCO and its 14 affiliated unions. And our mission is to have a focus on future work life. What skills do we need? How will things change? How will we cope with automation? How can we make the best out of digitalization? Issues like that. And I'm very honored and very happy to have our friends from Nesta here with us today, and I know you are as well, to have the opportunity to listen to them. Futurion have had the opportunity to be a part of the Digital Frontrunners program, which has been very useful for us. I think when looking at digitalization and how we manage that in Sweden, it's always good to get inputs from the outside. How are we doing compared to others? Can we learn from others? What can we share with others? And I think one thing, being a front runner, you know, leading the race. The day before this, it was Vasaloppet in Sweden, and you could look at the people leading the race, whether they are, you know, fat cats slowing down, or if they are suffering from runner-up anxiety, just looking over their shoulder the whole time. I think it's very important that we use the front-runner position that we have in this country in a good way and maintaining that. And one of the key elements in doing that is to provide all people in this country with the necessary digital skills, future-proofed and useful, which is the aim of Digital Frontrunners. And Olivia, Chapman, Program Manager, please join me and give us an introduction to what is Digital Frontrunners and how it has it been set up and what's the purpose. Please, welcome.
Thank you very much, Per, and welcome everyone here. We're absolutely thrilled to be here in this beautiful space to talk about digital skills and how we can make them work for everyone. So Per did a great introduction to the program that we run at Nesta. My name's Olivia Chapman and I lead the team on this. I've got a few slides to keep you entertained. So Nesta is an innovation foundation we've been running for quite a few years. We were set up under Tony Blair's government and have become an independent charity since. Our mission is to tackle some of the biggest challenges of our time. It's a pretty big mission statement, but we work in areas of health and education and all the areas where you think there are problems to be tackled and where we can make a real difference and improve outcomes for people across the spectrum. But we can't tackle these big problems and big challenges of our world today alone. So we work with a wide range of partners across the world, from other think tanks, from corporates to public sector. So we have a very, very impactful and exciting network around the world. And increasingly, and this is what brings us on to why we're here today, we've been looking at the impact of technology and digitization and digital transformation, and a lot of innovation is rooted and boosted by technology, but what comes with it is also a lot of challenges. Specifically, in our team, we're looking at the impact of technology on work, and we think there's a huge opportunity if people can be included. Come and sit down. Included in this if they have the right skills to take part. So we've been doing a lot of research. Our next gen report was instrumental in getting coding onto the curriculum in the UK. We've looked at how creativity and scientific and tech jobs can complement each other. We've been building a skills taxonomy which looks at scraping job data and matching it to changes in the labour market, and also skills coming for people coming through the education system. Our Future of Skills report has been quite a big seminal piece of work where we used actually machine learning to do some of the research, and delivering digital skills is a piece that's helped build the Digital Frontrunners program, which looks at training and training provision and what's available out there and what's working and what's not. But despite this research, despite great networks, despite all this enthusiasm for tackling this problem, we still keep coming up against three sort of main problems, or at least these are the ones we find. People still need to know, stakeholders, governments, unions, employers, individuals still want to know what skills are needed and how do you access the training opportunities to give you those skills or opportunities to take part in the future. How do you create a workforce that is one that is adaptive and flexible, and how do you create a continuous learner, and how do you motivate people to be interested in this very urgent topic? And part of the key aspects or elements of digital frontrunners is how do you create policy entrepreneurs or government that support that environment? How do you make government more experimental and innovative and responsive to these urgent changes? So we thought we'd go to work in some countries where they're already doing very cool things and where they're innovative, open-minded, adaptive, flexible, experimental. So we kicked off Digital Frontrunners a year ago. We're currently working in these countries. And the objective of Frontrunners is basically to bring together a group of senior stakeholders, again, union representatives, senior government, training organisation, technologists, companies, those who have a vested interest or mandate to deliver solutions for future skills and the future of work. And we bring them together over a series of workshops throughout the year. We co-design solutions with them through prototyping workshops or creating new research and reports and analysis on what's working out there. So it's been a very, very exciting program. We have quite a lot of participants. I think we've got something like 100 odd future work experts in our network. And Stockholm and Sweden has played a very important role, and our relationship with Futurion has been part of that as well. So it's very exciting at the moment, sort of thinking about what we do to address those challenges together and how we can learn from each other where we've got sort of shared goals and challenges. The detail of this is going to be explained by our senior researcher, Jack. So thank you very much for having us. I think I've got some of my slides. Good opening. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
I've got a face mic.
Oh.
Thank you, Olivia.
Oh.
So, as Olivia mentioned, we have started to recognise increasingly that the future of work is presenting a challenge to people across different sectors, different countries, and different job roles. And I'm going to present a few stats now that kind of really highlight some of the challenges that face countries across the world. So, firstly, we know that technology is changing the workplace very quickly. Almost half of employees have experienced change over the last 5 years. So how can we ensure that people have the right skills to adapt to the changing world of work? And how can we make sure that there are enough skilled people to fill the growing roles that are developing as different industries and different jobs become kind of more focused on technology and ICT? So we know that we need more people with high-level digital skills, but we also know that at least half of us will need to learn other skills over the coming years to adapt to our jobs as they change, and potentially to move into new roles as different jobs become automated. We also know that the people who receive upskilling are often those who are already able to adapt to the jobs of the future. And those who are in highly automatable jobs are very unlikely to get training. And so what we wanted to do as part of Digital Frontrunners was try and ensure that people who need retraining and reskilling are able to access it. This is what Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum said, I think, in 2017. The World Economic Forum has really been driving home the necessity of providing reskilling and retraining, and highlighted the fact that it creates kind of more social capital and ensures that societies will be able to adapt as technologies change the world of work. What it hasn't done is really demonstrated ways that that is working, and ways that, policymakers and other stakeholders can understand how people can be retrained. And so that's what led us to develop Digital Frontrunners, as Olivia mentioned. So We've drawn from 9 countries that were identified by McKinsey as digital frontrunners because they have a lot to gain from investing in digitalization. And they're also doing a lot to create a more inclusive labour market and inclusive workforce. We know that in Finland, for instance, they're committed to improving lifelong learning to create a more inclusive workforce. Denmark is always trying to drive ahead here and has stated that the Danes need to be the most digital people in Europe. And of course, Sweden has been identified by the OECD as having a kind of great labour market structure to adapt to the future of work with the Swedish model. So over the last year, as Olivia mentioned, we've been bringing together people from government, from unions, think tanks, and other stakeholders to try and understand what's working to bring about a more inclusive future of work. What kind of policies and services are being developed around the 6 digital frontrunner countries that can serve as a kind of leading light to other countries and to members of these countries when they're considering developments to the labour market. And what we do is we try to bring to light tacit knowledge, knowledge that people might not see the value of, and also get people to think about problems in new ways. So we use techniques drawn from design thinking, these sorts of workshops where we try to focus in on a particular issue and try to draw out solutions that have been developed there. And we use techniques like this, where we present a lot of new evidence to people in a new way. So rather than locking it away in a report, we try to make it so that people can evaluate it against bits of evidence that they might not have seen before, or which might come from a totally different area or sector. So on the left, we have some evidence cards that had been collected by participants and looked at next to each other to try and work out how you can create more motivation for learning. On the right is this toolbox, and you can see there are scribbles on here. These are from the participants in the workshops who had listened to new techniques and new services for improving motivation to learn and tried to note down what they might be able to use and adapt in their own situations. And through a series of workshops like this, and also kind of a great deal of background research done within Nesta, we identified that there are this is kind of a really nice quote by one of the participants who finds that, you know, working in a kind of policy environment day to day, you tend not to be exposed to new ideas or new people that much. But in our workshops, they're delighted to speak to people like Per and hear about new cutting edge practices. But yeah, as I said, through this work, we've identified that there are kind of 4 key challenges that countries need to address if they're to bring about a more inclusive and more adaptable labour market for the future of work. And the report that's down here focuses very much on the role of governments here, but what we've recognised is that really a variety of stakeholders need to come together to make changes to the way the labour market works in order to make sure that countries can adapt. So I'm going to go into these in a little bit more detail and provide some examples of services and policies that have been able to solve these challenges. The first one is a tricky technical question. How do you anticipate the skills that will be in demand with enough foresight to make sure that the labour market can adapt and that different curriculums for training can adapt? So we know that technology has very wide-ranging effects on the workplace. In the past, there's been a kind of a great focus on kind of teaching people technical digital skills, getting people to go to coding boot camps, getting coding on the curriculum. But what we're increasingly seeing is that skills like creativity and the ability to collaborate are really important to make the most of digital technologies. We also know that with the speed of technological change, the specific skills that people might need in jobs change quite quickly. And current skills forecasting techniques, while they're very good and often involve kind of a lot of kind of employer engagement, can be a bit slow. Taking 2 years to work out what skills are needed for the next 2 years kind of leaves us behind in terms of preparation. We think machine learning and the use of more open data can help governments and other stakeholders to identify which skills are going to be required, and also help employees and workers to understand what skills they might need for the jobs of the future. In the report, we present 2 examples which we encountered through the Digital Frontrunners program. The first is Job Check, which is run by the Public Employment Service in Sweden, and who are working to open up labour market data and create an environment where new tools and techniques for skills matching for jobs can be developed. In Finland, HEDI was given €500,000 by Sitra, the Finnish Innovation Fund, to do something similar, to develop a skills matching service which would enable employers and employees to work out what jobs and what skills they need. The second big challenge is, how do you serve the diverse needs of lots of workers across contexts? So we know from the research that low and medium skilled workers often receive the least training, and also people who work in SMEs, people who are self-employed, and people on short-term contracts often receive less training than those who are in permanent contracts. The reason for these differences will be different depending on your educational background and your lifestyle. So we believe that user-centered design is a really effective approach to understand how you can develop services that actually serve the needs of people in the community. One great example is Digital Talent at Ghent, which is a digital competence program, and which was given very little funding to begin with. So they recognized the need to actually go out and work out what was really needed in the community. And they did that by using focus groups, by engaging with employers, and by really understanding where best their funding could be placed. The Innovation Lab in Estonia is now working to bring user-centered design to the heart of government and help policymakers to develop the capacities to design policies that serve the needs of citizens. Thirdly, this is an issue that is at the heart of learning. Learning is very difficult. Learning new skills is not something that you can just kind of get people to do by sitting down at a computer for 3 hours and downloading the information they need. People really need to understand what that learning is for and be intrinsically motivated to pursue a month, potentially 3 months of kind of a high degree of training to get the skills that they need for the future. It's difficult to know what motivates people. And so we think that experimentation and the use of behavioral insights can give us the insights that we need to design services for people that encourage people to learn. In Finland, they've had a recent call for pilots to work out what can motivate people in the health sector to build their digital skills. And they're engaging a wide range of stakeholders, from kind of doctors and hospitals to health tech organizations to try and develop new approaches to do that. And the Behavioral Insights Network in the Netherlands has been exploring ways that you can encourage the unemployed to search for jobs using behavioral insights. Final challenge is probably the biggest. If things are changing quickly, it's not enough for one part of the labour market, one stakeholder, to drive forward and leave the others behind. There needs to be engagement and understanding between them all to bring about change that enables the labour market to be adaptable. What we've found is that multi-stakeholder collaboration presents probably the best way to bring about kind of wide-ranging change across the system. The Disruption Council in Denmark came and presented at one of our workshops, and we were told that there were multiple benefits to collaborating with unions, government, and employers. The Disruption Council, just to give a bit of background, was set up to help the government to understand how to make the most of technological change. It ran a little like Digital Frontrunners through a series of workshops, bringing together those stakeholders who I just mentioned to try and identify common goals for a way forward. They identified a series of common challenges, and what they found is that this kind of group work has enabled them to develop relationships that mean that they can be more flexible as they move into the future. A similar thing was discovered through the Technology Pact in the Netherlands, which brought together 60 stakeholders from government, regional government, unions and employers to set collective goals to increase the number of people studying STEM across the Netherlands. The initial pact was signed in 2013, and in 2016 they were able to look at it, see what had worked, and cross those off the list and add new things. And so now what they're doing is focusing more on bringing more women into STEM jobs and increasing the level of digital skills in the Netherlands. And so, just to summarize what we believe needs to take place in order for people to learn the skills that are required for the labour markets of the future. We need to get better at predicting changes to the labour market demands using machine learning and open data. We need to use new approaches to design services and policies that work for everyone. And by work for everyone, I mean often you'll need to have lots of a variety, a palette of services and policies that work for different people. We need to find ways that inspire workers and their employers to invest in learning. And we also need to find new models for collaboration that enable different parties in the labour market to work together to bring about change. And it's great to hear, to be here in Sweden, where I know that you're really leaders in that. Yeah, thank you very much. If you have any questions before we move into activities, now would be a great time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a round of applause for Jack. Great presentation. Any questions? If not, I've been a part of this, and we've talked about this before. In sharing and learning from others, we've been talking about not focusing on the product from each country, the model, but rather the process that has been leading up to the model. Maybe that's been, at least for me, really, really helpful, understanding how did they come up with that solution. What is your take on that? How should we divide focus between product and process in learning from each other?
I think this is something that digital frontrunners can really add to kind of policymakers' knowledge. What we often see when we read think tank reports is, let's create a kind of, the
perfect solution.
The perfect solution. So in Singapore, for instance, there's something called Skills Future Singapore, where everyone gets 500 Singaporean dollars to spend on self-development over the year. I've seen that put in so many reports as like something that your country should do. The reality is that hasn't worked initially.
Bummer.
And it's required like a lot of working with other stakeholders to get it to work. So
the interesting thing is, how did the Singaporeans come about to that idea?
Yes.
And why did they?
Why did they come to that idea?
Yeah.
Well, I think they recognized that it was a good idea to begin with. I think the interesting thing is, once they recognized that it's a good idea, how did they get to actually making it work?
Mm.
And in think tanks, you often say, oh, this is a good idea. But it's the policymakers and other stakeholders who have to make it work. And what we try to do is create an environment where people can say, this hasn't worked. And other members of the community in Digital Frontrunners are able to say, okay, well, maybe try it this way. Maybe try it that way, or try something else entirely.
Any comments, questions? If not, the idea of this session together with Nesta is also, what do we call it? Hearing and sharing? Herring and sharing. No, hearing and sharing, being in Sweden. Leaving the floor now to Elsie Till, co-director of the program, who's going to introduce. Did I not give you the right title?
No, I love that.
Okay. I just bumped her up. Well, Elsie, you're going to lead us into the workshop phase of this, where the idea is that we together, I think we need to break out into two groups eventually, from our different perspectives, focus on the four quite challenging challenges that the program has identified. Please, Elsie.
Thank you. So I'm Elsie, I'm also from Nesta, and this is how you know we love Stockholm. We send 3 of us to do what arguably one person could have done. But so this is onto my bit, which is to, as Per said, to hear from you. we run lots of workshops where we bring together people from 6+ different countries, which is really exciting. We get to hear loads of kind of tidbits of what's going on across the region. This is probably the first workshop we've run with just kind of one national group. And this is really exciting for us because hopefully we'll get to hear a bit more kind of detail of how things work, maybe on a regional level, on an organizational level. So to start off, you'll need to stand up in a second. Just as a bit of, we call it dotmocracy. Have you heard that term? We want to hear from you how good, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, as an organization, as a region, as a country. I don't mind how you interpret the question, and take the orange dots where you think there are weaknesses, like which of these challenges you think need particular work or particular focus, and maybe tell us also where you think there are real strengths, and represent that with green dots. Does that make sense? And if you feel really strongly that there's a really significant weakness or strength that you want to bring out, feel free to like put a couple of dots on one.
Is there a limit?
Well, there's however many dots there are stuck up on the board. So we've said 8, but just feel free. So got a few minutes. Any questions before you stand up?
Did you say about the country, about in general, in Sweden, or about what? Yeah,
so I'm interested in your interpretation. Yes. So that should come out in the discussions afterwards. So if whatever you know, whatever you think you can comment on, whether it's your organization is doing one of these things well or not very well, whether your region I don't know if you represent, if you're coming from a different region in Sweden, or just kind of commenting on where you think Sweden is as a country. So it's really up to you what context you think it through, and then in the discussions, that will be an interesting thing for us to find out how you interpreted it. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So I think.
But you don't have to stand up and explain to everyone. Just come and stick. Yes. If I could interrupt you, because I know conversations are already starting. Could I ask you to sit back down so you can get into groups and we can try and listen into these conversations? Exactly. Okay. So this is a nice visual representation. Hopefully you can kind of remember where you put which dots. But if I could just sort of split you in half and group around and encourage you to talk to each other about why you put some orange dots, why you put green dots where you did, where you think, how you interpreted it. So whether it's an organizational thing, a regional thing, a countrywide thing, and what was motivating you to think whether something was being done well or not. And I heard someone talk about kind of it's all relative. Obviously, this is a very sort of binary exercise. And so now in the discussion, hopefully you can pull out a bit like, why do you think you're good at something? Is it because you've been to another country and you've seen it done differently, or however you've interpreted it? So I'll just set you off on that conversation, and we'll kind of feel free to obviously to speak in Swedish. We've got Per, we'll be coming back and forth, and at the end we might call you back into this one forum and ask you to feedback a bit. Okay?
And how many minutes, roughly?
We'll check in on you in 20 minutes. Does that sound okay?
Yeah. So a good, fruitful, and we're all Swedish workshop professionals, aren't we? So we'll handle
Okay.
this.
Okay, so where does this split? Are you going to go one side or the other? Yeah, we thought we'd let you speak.
I just let them for the conversations?
Remind
they felt?
them that they're last 5 minutes.
Couple more minutes, and then if we could come back and talk as a group. Okay, if I could interrupt your conversations and you could take a seat again.
Yes, I thought you said you looked like you were having those conversations.
We're trying to move
This is the British move.
No, it's more like I don't know.
We have done that. We do these a lot, and we've been discussing before. Actually, it's so much nicer for you to speak in your own language, at least when you're having a conversation.
Yeah, thank you. I hope the conversations are very useful and interesting. And this is the time when you can kind of tell us in English and help us learn what you were talking about. So I imagine your conversations kind of meandered and went in different directions. And of course, that's fine. I'll kind of ask box by box. I think, first of all, I'm interested, do these 4 kind of challenges resonate when you saw them? Was it like, yeah, I get that those are 4 kind of key parts? A few nods.
Or did we miss the box?
Yeah, is anything missing? All right, we'll come to that.
You talked about sub-boxes, but they can be, but sometimes they divide into like
Yeah.
this. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think anticipating skills, that seems kind of divisive. Some people think doing it really well, and some people doing it really well, and some people think not so well. So I'm interested from either group, any one person want to comment on either why they stuck which sticker they did, or just a reflection from the conversation you've had.
I think, Mikael, you had an interesting thought, I think, about since so much is technology driven, and we can't anticipate what technology will lead to. Can you refer to Steve Jobs and smartphones?
Yeah. As you probably are very well aware of, Steve Jobs, when he introduced the smartphone, the first iPhone, it was he didn't have any fixed idea what it was going to turn out as. It was pretty fixed. It didn't have this third-party apps at that time. He didn't want to open it up because he wanted to be to know that it was working, and he didn't want to release it for everybody to make an app. So making an analogy from that would be that we don't know. We know that the technology that is coming is very, very powerful, of course, but we don't know how it's gonna evolve, what's gonna be like. So anticipating the skills that will be in demand, it's hard because who knows? Honestly, nobody knows. I'm called an AI expert. I don't know. I've studied at Harvard and MIT. I don't know.
You should know. Yeah. Oh dear, we're all tuned. Yeah.
Could you please also introduce yourself?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Hi, Thomas. I'm a researcher at RISE. I was thinking about what you said about anticipating the skills that will be in demand. Perhaps it's more to anticipate or realize that there will be a transformation, there will be a change of skills, and there will be a change of activities, and therefore you will sort of solve some of the other boxes as well.
Thank you. Well, one thought, I have a background in economics and one in neuroscience. So from a biological perspective, I think we have stem cells that are kind of possible. First we have specialized cells like neurons and every kind of cell, but we also have stem cells that kind of should later will evolve into a specific kind of cell. And that's the kind of perspective I think is useful even in this in this area, because there are of course some generic abilities that will be that is very likely to be good or to be profitable in the future, and there are others, but they're not. Maybe we don't need to specialize so much. We need to be more general in our approach, and then, as the technology evolves, specialize in those areas later on.
Mm-hmm. I think that's an important point, our relationship with skills as well, and how that might change our relationship with our careers, our relationship with our skills, and then the short term, anticipating for the next 10 or 20 years, maybe rather than thinking in the sci-fi realm of 50 plus years, where we don't even know what jobs will be needed, let alone the skills. Is anyone, there are some green dots though, and I don't want to dwell on this box for too long because I'd like to hear some more, but is there anyone who can tell us where they think this is being done well?
Perhaps a little bit cynical. We are very good on raising funds for education and training programs, even though we can see the connection between the change on the market and what competence development we have worked with. So we are good at getting money.
Mm-hmm. And when you say we, is that kind of within the Swedish society?
I don't know the study, but it was very clear that the connection between what we develop as competence within Swedish companies and authorities when it comes to this, the boss talks to the employee, and next year you are supposed to develop your competence, and the connection to what actually is needed on the market is no one. There's no connection at all.
Yeah.
So we are good at raising money for development of skills, but it's not the right skills.
Mm-hmm. exactly the challenge.
I just had a question for the group, actually. We mentioned job tech before, which we promote as an amazing initiative which is serving this issue. And I wondered how many people here have heard of what the Employment Agency and job tech are doing. So, yes. And are you you think this is a good solution? This is a... Oh,
we actually have the founder of job tech in the house, so Lars, maybe you can...
Oh, really?
Yeah, founder in the house.
Wow.
Thank you. My English is too weak to speak about that, but I'm the chairman of the new association, Swedish Job Tech, and it's a private initiative from the former boss of the Public Employment Service Innovation Center, Olle Lundin, and they are working there. So this is very important for us. But I don't think we are enough competent to anticipate the future. But yes, we are starting to power the elevation or the of the ecosystem for digital matching in a wide range. Validation, profilation, targeting, and all the applications you need. And we also try to be a soft link between the private sector and the public sector. And we think that when the public sector open up their databases, we have a lot of, what do you say? We have a lot of good things in the databases we can use for every. There is a lot of value in the databases. So we think in the future, say in 5 years' time, we have a much better system for digital matching in the wide range. Yes.
And there is also a platform where employment service put all the open data about all the ads, all the ads, because we have plenty of ads. Almost every other recruitment company uses our ads. So it's open data, a platform where we want to make it easier for people when they want to look for jobs. Instead of going to all these different recruitment companies and you have to write down your CV, you have to write down the same things about yourself in all the different web pages, you should be able to have your own, you own your data, but you can put it on one platform and then you can send it from there and take it back, whether you want to send it or not. So it's more like instead of us owning your data, you will own your own data and you can send it everywhere, and in this platform you can you just check in once. So that's we think it would be very helpful for people.
And as to come back to something Per said earlier about the importance of learning not about the product but the process, something we've really appreciated from working with some of the job tech team is it seems that the whole initiative seems to be very much underpinned by this value of open source and visibility. And we even met with some yesterday and we were going around the room and introducing, and during one of the colleagues' introductions, he talked about how difficult something was, how he'd just had a breakthrough, and I think that's really valuable to hear about. So we've really appreciated that kind of openness, and we're encouraging others to be similar. Anything else on anticipating skills? There are a lot of kind of reports. Nesta have done our own report, McKinsey as well. But I think this is both companies and policymakers keep asking, but what should we invest in? And that's kind of the difficult thing to answer. What about there's slightly more kind of weaknesses here? Does anyone want to comment on serving the needs of a diverse workforce? And I guess diversity is high on the agenda across Europe at the moment. Did anyone put a orange dot and want to reflect on it?
It's your turn. Our group have talked.
No?
Okay.
We didn't talk about it in our group.
That's fine. There are no rules. Just go.
So my name is Sarah, and I have a company called Mångfaldsakademin, and we help companies, organizations to grow business through diversity inclusion. So I can just talk from this from my company standpoint. I think that we all need to be much better in this sector, especially since a lot of the learning will be digital going forward. A lot of it is today, but also going forward. If that is that you learn knowledge, or if it's something you pick up and then to apply in your day-to-day work. And still a lot of the technical platforms are, we're not really considering that they need to be more accessible. And so I think that just to start with that one point, to make sure that all our technical platforms all get technical applications, regardless if that is a learning platform or whatever, just make sure that that is more accessible, then we would improve a lot of things for a lot of people. And to also realize that diversity is not just these different discriminations grounds, not just females, males, or if you have a disability, whatever. It's really that people are different. They have different kind of learning abilities, different kind of communication style, different way of absorbing things. If it is easier to absorb learning through pictures or videos or reading or listening, just it's really, really basic stuff. And I think there is tons of improvement can be done with very little means.
Thank you. Any other comments on serving diverse needs?
Hello, I'm Fredrik van Essen at the Swedish Industry Association for the ICT companies. I actually was the only one putting the 3 green dots there, because I think at least the unions and the kind of partner model in Sweden have the ambition of serving the needs of diverse workforces, kind of sector by sector. So that's why I put the green dots. Then if they succeed or not, that's another issue, and that's linked to the anticipating the skills and the motivation. But I think still there is an ambition and a culture of actually serving the needs of a diverse workforce.
Thank you. Now I've noticed we've got about 15 minutes left, and Per, I don't know if you want to have some time to wrap up. So not that I'm handing over to the wrap up right now, but I'm just thinking, just in general, were there conversations that you had, or does anyone want to plug what you're working on and tell us about it as good examples or experiences where you've had challenges? We haven't talked about maintaining the skills ecosystem or motivating people. This one kind of stands out as the one where actually I'm interested. Who put the green dots and why? Go on.
I put those because I was thinking about my own organization or school, actually, where I'm studying. I'm at Hyper Island, going to be a design lead. And I think Hyper Island is great at motivating people to learn. But as we discussed in the group, it might also have something to do with people actually coming there to learn.
Right.
So they're already
selected,
motivated.
yeah.
But I do believe that their pedagogic models are really great for this, and just dropping people in the deep end of the pool and you know, forcing people to learn by doing is a very good tool.
And is that linked back to kind of the diverse needs of the workforce? Is it quite a diverse, using different pedagogy? I can't say the word now. You all know what we mean.
Yeah, the P word.
Is it like lots of diverse